Hi friends, it's your girl Harpo. Welcome to this episode of Brown Girl Guilt. Today my guest is Tarannum Thind, Miss Chai with Tea. With over 2 decades of experience in performing arts, broadcasting, and community engagement, Tarannum Thind stands as one of Vancouver's most recognized South Asian media personalities. I would actually argue and say Canada's media personalities. She's a trailblazer for both women and South Asians in broadcasting, and she is known for bringing her warmth, passion, and storytelling expertise into countless homes in Vancouver and beyond. Tarannum is a firm believer in the transformative power of conversations and open dialogue. She views vulnerability as a bridge to genuine human connection, which is the essence of her work. Very, very true. And through her podcast, Chai with Tea, she creates a welcoming and safe space for her guests, allowing them to share their deepest thoughts and experiences, fostering meaningful connections with her audience. And we're so lucky that she gets to do that with us today, with her on the other side of the microphone. So hi, Didi, welcome.
Hello, Sunshine. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy that I get to have you on the other side of the microphone. And before we started, you were like telling me what to do. And I was like, can you just relax and be the guest today?
When the roles get reversed, I have a really hard time.
Yeah.
I think I'm more comfortable asking the questions.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to talk about myself, but it's you. So I just feel like it's a catch up.
It is a catch up,
Yeah.
right? And you've been on the podcast before. This is your second time.
Yes.
You were in my first season ever. I think you were like the first 5 episodes that I did, where one of them was with you, and it was called Block the Noise.
That's right.
Because that is the one thing that I've learned from you as a young, impressionable woman ever since I met you at the tail end of 2019. It's a long time now. Actually, I've known you for like 5 years now. That's what you've taught me. It's to block out the noise.
You've taught me a lot of things as well.
Aww.
You have. That wasn't our first meeting, by the way. We met way before that.
Oh my God, we did. We did meet before.
Right? Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, first we met because I watched you on TV as a child. Okay.
As a child.
I knew.
Aged.
As soon as I finish that sentence, she's going to be like, "Maine buddhi banata." But we did meet years ago. We met. I saw you at Alto Accessories in Metrotown.
I used to love that store.
Yeah, it was a good store. Yeah, I walked in and there was this very recognizable face, hair, voice. And I came up to you and I was like, "Are you Tarannum Thind?" And you were like, "Yeah." And then you said hi to me and then you walked away. And of course, you don't remember that because I was just a young girl in a store. And then years later, someone said to me, "Oh, there's somebody that really wants to meet you. I want to introduce you to someone. Her name is Tarannum Thind." And I was like, "What? Why would Tarannum Thind want to meet me?" You know?
Isn't it amazing? It's like a full circle
It is.
moment.
Yeah.
Now there's girls coming up to you and saying,
Yeah.
Harpo!
I didn't even think of
My
that.
goodness.
Yeah.
How amazing is that?
It's so amazing. And, you know, you and I were honored at the same event a couple of weeks ago.
That was
And
crazy.
it was all about recognition and education through broadcasting and media. And what I had said in my sort of like address to the room was, you can't become what you can't see. And I think that's what it is, right? Like you were so visible to all of us.
Right.
And we were always watching you and you were always sort of there. Every time I say that, you just get so like emotional and senti. And I think it just speaks like your emotional reaction to that just speaks to how like profound and important your work is to you.
It is really important to me.
Yeah.
It also takes me back to when I was that girl and I looked up to Sushma ji.
Yeah.
And I saw Sushma ji in the 90s when I moved to Canada on
Yeah.
TV for the first time and doing these shows because there was no other brown face that I saw.
Yeah.
And that felt like a dream. But then it also felt like if she can do it, I think it can be done. So that's why I think it's a full circle moment because it's Sushma ji, myself, and you getting honored.
Yeah.
It's just incredible how the universe works. Isn't
It was very special. Like if we just speak about that for 1 second,
Absolutely.
about the 3 of us together in that room to be honored at the same time in that way. It was really special because I think it just speaks to how long storytelling through the experiences of women it's been like long standing in our community because there's 3 different generations that were involved in that event, right?
Yeah.
So
and so many more, so many more women. What television, broadcasting, radio looks like now It wasn't the case 20 years ago.
No.
And it makes me so happy and proud
Yeah.
to look around and see how far we've come.
Yeah.
I think that it was a Diwali event at the Canucks the other night.
We had so much fun there.
Right? And Randeep and I were talking about it. I'm like, this is just the coolest time to be brown. It's such a cool time.
It is.
And that was an uphill battle. And I think the path wasn't paved for us, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
And we've been doing that in our own way without even realizing that we've been doing that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So we're going to talk about your podcast eventually in this podcast because there's a very important backstory to your podcast that I think that I really want to tell the story around. I have been privy to it. I have witnessed it from start to what it is now. So I really want that story to come out. But I want to start somewhere. So we talked a little bit about you being visible and sort of being around everybody's like psyche, right? Like we always saw you on television. We heard your voice. While you were so visible, did you truly feel visible or were you feeling invisible for all those years?
Wow, that's a very, very deep question. I felt visible. But there came a time where I started feeling invisible. So I think I went from feeling really fulfilled, really loving my job, really enjoying what I did, working around the clock, turning into literally like a hamster on the wheel constantly. Just being so passionate about storytelling and what came with it, which was such a rewarding experience because the community has always been there for me. It's always encouraged me. It's always been there as a cheerleader. So being on stages and emceeing events, every weekend I was out. And it did feel like this is what I'm meant to do. This is exactly what I'm supposed to do. Until the moment when it didn't feel fulfilling anymore. It didn't fill my cup anymore. And I started feeling exhausted and burnt out. And that's when I started feeling invisible. And that's because I think it's not because other people stopped seeing me. I think it was because I couldn't see myself or recognize myself anymore.
Really?
I wasn't finding joy in things that I used to find joy in. And I think that's what shifted. Yeah.
You actually took some time around that time. You stepped away. This is right before I actually met you. You had taken a step back from the industry. You stopped emceeing events. You stopped going to social gatherings. You know, we muted a lot of people on social media.
Blessing. Honestly, it's the biggest IG. I thank you so much. It's so user friendly. It's been so peaceful,
so conducive to mental health, right?
It's
like
incredible.
Mute.
You don't even realize it. You don't realize how long you're scrolling and how long you are looking at other people's lives and feeling envious. And feeling really shitty about your life. Because everything seems so much more glamorous and glorified. And then you're like, oh my gosh, am I doing enough? Am I good enough? I'm not living it up the way these people are. So then it was a conscious effort. I think it was like 100 accounts that in one night I muted.
That is
and
wild.
It's been amazing because my algorithm now only sends me things that are, good for my soul and positive, and they're incredible. It's been amazing.
Okay. So around that time, there was like a whole like stepping back and being like, okay, I want to pause from everybody. And you went to maybe go find something. Maybe you went to go like look for something. Let's talk about that. Like, what was that time in your life like when you actually took a step back and you decided to really distance yourself from the thing that wasn't bringing you joy anymore?
I don't think it was one moment. I think it was, it probably took a very long time to even realize that feeling. And when I say I was burnt out, I was mentally burnt out and I was physically burnt out. I was getting really, really irritated and annoyed. And every time I went out, I would come home and not wanting to talk to anybody and feeling drained almost. So one thing I've been really good at, but also at times ignored, is my intuition. When you're not listening to your body and your mind, it takes a toll on you. some personal stuff happened in my life, and I just realized that I can't do this anymore. One, my kids were also at that stage where I wanted to spend time with them. They were very aware that mom's going out.
Mom's famous.
They were aware. They were aware that, mommy's not around.
Yeah.
And I think that was also, there were important dinners happening at home, where like extended families there, and I'm getting ready to go MC an event.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that happening. Also, we talked about blocking out the noise, but I don't think I was walking the talk.
Yeah.
Myself.
Yeah.
So when you are not able to block out the noise anymore, and you start to question everything you're doing and how you're doing it and what you are and who you are, and you start perceiving yourself through other people's eyes, it can be a very dangerous space. That started to happen because all the noises started to filter into my brain.
Yeah. And what were some of those voices saying to you? What were some of those things that you were saying to yourself?
Maybe it was just made up.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe it was just made up in my mind. She's trying too hard. She's everywhere. I felt it. I felt like I'm everywhere. At one point, I remember my Facebook album of like events was so overloaded. And I would come back from an event, and that was a thing. Facebook was a thing at that time. I would come back from an event and take out all the pictures and just add them to the Facebook. And it was like, at one point in 1 year, I think it was like 20 events, one after the other. Yeah. And I was getting sick of myself.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I was like, how can people not get sick of this? I'm not exclusive anymore. Right. I take pride in being approachable. That's always been me. I want to be able to keep that door open where people can come and share their stories with me. And I love that. And that's how you become part of the community. But I think that also started taking a toll. Yeah. Because I don't know, or I didn't know how to draw the boundaries. So I was keeping myself open to everybody. Yeah. So I was carrying a lot of baggage from other people as well. So it was the noises. It was that being open to everyone and being everybody's best friend and feeling exhausted. Yeah. I don't particularly remember what those noises were, but I just remember it being not being able to sleep well at night. Really? Not being able to focus, not knowing what direction am I going in, not having the clarity at all, just being like, just going with it and not really have a particular specific goal in mind, which is very unlike me. I usually have a very clear vision of how I would like to manifest my next 10 years, 20 years, and how I want to see my life. But that wasn't happening.
Well, it sounds like you were unwell, right? Like at that time you were unwell. And it's always interesting because when you look from the outside in on a career like that, on a person like that, where you're this like enigma, you're not just Tarannum, you're Tarannum Thind, right? You're someone that like people have associations and understanding of you in the community. You're a pioneer in a sort. You're somebody who is hyper visible. People also have a lot of understandings of you and they've made meaning of you, right? So it's hard to think from the outside looking in that somebody like that could be feeling this self-conscious, could be feeling maybe this misaligned, this unwell, and like, I just feel like in that time period that I first met you and we finally started to go to things, people would always make comments about how they hadn't seen you in a while and like, where you been? Like, I haven't heard from you. Let's catch up. And just like, I could see how uncomfortable that would make you because I don't think that you were either willing to engage with them again or ready to go back out there like that again. Yeah. Right. And so many opportunities I saw you turn down and say no to. And I always noticed this like battle between like the people pleasing Tarannum who always did it and should do it. And then like the Tarannum who's like, no, I'm unwell and I want to take care of myself, It's still a battle. Yeah. Saying no is very hard for me. And now with the podcast, I have to do it often. Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard to say no. It's my constant battle. I'm learning. If I say no, I explain myself way too much. Yeah. And then when I explain too much, then I realize what am I doing? You don't have to explain yourself to anybody. Yeah. If you're not aligning with something, you just have to do this for yourself. And nobody knows what it takes to be you. Yeah, nobody does. It's only you who's carrying yourself forward. And if you are not even present
there were so many times where I was present physically, but I wasn't mentally present.
Yeah.
Then I'm not, what am I going to gain from it? And what are you going to gain from it when I'm not even there? So if I'm not coming as myself, then let me take care of myself first, step back, just introspect, reflect, be alone. I didn't even know how to be alone. I think it's a very recent phenomenon that I'm discovering about myself, that I actually love myself and I love my own company. I always thought that I was like Dad.
Yeah.
I was social. My brother is an introvert. I'm an extrovert. That's how I get my energy, by going out. And I love people. I love stories. But that doesn't mean that every room is made for you. I enjoy company, but that doesn't mean that I enjoy everybody's company.
Yeah.
So I think I realized that as I'm getting older, and Mom loves this because I'm becoming like her. She's really picky about who she lets into her life. And I've become that person now. But I just find value in it, actually, to be honest, because I'm able to be present with the people that matter to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like when you were that version of you, when you were that person, what do you think was driving that? Like, what was driving being in every room, like saying yes to anything and everything? What do you think was really driving all that taking up space?
I think ambition was one. It also was a default. It was sort of like a byproduct of what I was doing as a career.
Yeah.
I was always the face of the channel that I worked for. So first it's Channel M, you become the face of it. So any event there is, you have to represent the channel. Omni came around, and then I became the face of Omni. So it was always that I never said no. So anytime they said, would you show up? And I was like, yeah, of course. Would you MC? Yes, of course. So I was always, it started from that. And then I just started enjoying it a lot because I loved meeting new people. I genuinely enjoyed conversations. But then soon you realize that it's actually not conversations haven't changed. You have changed. What serves you has changed. You've grown, you've evolved. And the same conversations that used to bring you so much joy are not doing that anymore. So they're not serving you anymore. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. And in your career, like you said, you've been the face of a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So why do you say it like that?
I say it like that because I didn't realize that I unconsciously gave my power away.
Fuck yeah! I can't believe you just said that. High five. Holy shit.
So I didn't realize.
Whoa.
I never ever believed in myself fully. I always felt like I needed the cushion. I needed to be part of. I was so used to representing someone that I didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting because I remember I went through 2 layoffs.
Yeah.
One happened when Rogers bought Channel M. And from being the face of Channel M to Rogers coming in and, getting rid of all these jobs and productions, Chai Time was gone all of a sudden. So that was my first layoff experience. I had never been laid off. And then...
And how old were you?
Oh my gosh, I was young.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think Zia must have been... This is after Zia's birth. So I think barely 30, 31.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So young, yeah.
And that was my life. My career, my job, my shows were my life. And all of a sudden I felt like loss of identity. And then Omni News happened. And they created the space for me. Bhupinder Hundal was running the newsroom at that time, and he set up a meeting. Nathan was my producer. Those boys just showed so much faith in me. It's incredible. I've had these incredible people who've seen more in me than I have seen in myself. And I always wonder about that, what it takes to see that magic. Now I know.
Yeah.
Now I know. But at that time, it was really interesting to have these, universe was just sending all these people. Johnny Michelle was the first person at Channel M who saw that. I think it started with Sushma ji. then Johnny Michelle, then Bhupinder. So then Omni News had never had an entertainment segment. And then all of a sudden they were like, oh my gosh, it would be so cool if we could have entertainment segment. Would you like to like produce it, host it? I was like, yes, that would be amazing. So we just created it, literally. And again, I was the face of Omni. And arts and entertainment pretty much represented me.
I remember I just had the visual come into my mind. After school, like the screen would flash and it would be Tarannum standing in a dress. I just have that whole visual in my head.
Right? Oh, it was such a good time. I had a blast.
Yeah.
I had a blast. I loved, that's the thing. I love what I do.
You're so good at it.
But I worked my ass off too.
Yeah.
I really gave it all. I think that's what people don't realize. And I often say it, to make anything look effortless takes years and years and years of practice.
Yes.
And I have a problem with people just getting up and wanting to do everything.
Yeah.
And wanting to just like exactly.
Yeah.
And they think that it's easy, and that pisses me off, because you would never do that. You would never do that to a doctor. You would not get up and start doing a surgery. You would not be an engineer overnight. Yeah. But for some reason, when it comes to the art circuit, anybody and everybody can be an artist. Anybody can be a creator, which is fine. Everyone has a creative side. But just because you want the limelight, that's my problem. Yeah. People entering into this sphere, just wanting to be known.
Yeah, centering themselves as opposed to centering the work and the stories, right?
Yeah. So I didn't realize that there was this, the cushion that I had all these years of representing other stations and other places was actually taking me away from myself. I didn't even know how to be on my own. I didn't know how to take my power back.
Yeah. So then you get laid off from Omni, right?
So Omni went through major cutbacks again. And it's an ethnic station. We all know we're always the bottom of the barrel. So we lose jobs again. And that was a really big one as well. Yeah. And so it's happened often. And media is just the way things have shifted in the last few years, the way digital has come in. We sort of knew that it's going to happen. But when it happens, it hurts. Yeah. It's you're never ready for it, right? So layoffs are never fun. Losing a job is never fun, especially when you have a family to support. Right. But it's almost like the universe has tried to tell me this so many times. Harpo, apna kuch karo. So many times. Yeah. But I've been afraid. Yeah. I've always been afraid, and I never had the faith in myself until last year. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
It is. But it's understandable, right? So we're going to put a pin in that fear, because I want to come back and speak about that fear. So what happens after that? After Omni and that layoff, what happens after that?
I had a friend actually who was like, why don't we do something together? And he got laid off at the same time I did. And he did the video and editing stuff. And we pretty much said, okay, well, how about we do a show called Chai with Tea? That's how Chai with Tea was born. So it was born like 6 years ago. Wow. It was supposed to be a YouTube show, actually. And I recorded 8 episodes in one day. I still remember that. Yeah. And short form content was really in. Nobody wanted to watch long form at that time. There were no podcasts existing at that time, right? So shows had to be like 15, 20 minutes long. So I produced like a whole bunch of episodes. We did the promo, got some really big names. And Omni called me back to rehire me. And we already had released 2 episodes on my channel. And I gave in once again.
Okay, so you didn't go through with your project.
So I left my project in the middle because I needed a full-time job. Yeah. Or I thought I needed a full-time job. Let me just say that.
Yes.
It's not. That's the thing about being a kid in a middle-class family. Yeah. You've always seen 9 to 5 in a middle-class family. Like in my family, nobody's done business, and they sucked at it every time they tried, right? That's where I get it from, I think. It's always been teachers and government workers, and Papa was in Tribune. So it was always like a job. You got to have a job. You can do anything else on the side. So I think I came from that. So the moment I spoke to them about this show that I had, they said, no, you're the face of Omni now, so you can't have this.
Yeah.
So I just left it. I didn't even fight for it.
Yeah. Hey?
I didn't fight for it. I wish I did. Yeah.
No, but you know what? Like everything in due time, right? Sara ko shokamaya.
I think so.
You know, I think like that was part of the lesson. That was part of the lesson that the universe was giving to you again and again. Like, hey, Tarannum, like, don't give up on yourself. Don't give your power away, right?
Yeah.
And I think like we'll get there. We'll get there again. We'll get there. But like with the way that it's happening now in due time is so much better. So you went back and then you stayed there, and then
I didn't even stay for too long.
Yeah, you weren't there for that long, I think.
I was very unhappy because I was covering hard news.
Yeah. I remember a story about you and a politician.
Oh my gosh. I just hated it.
Yeah.
I hated it.
Yeah.
I think what was the last straw? You have to be very detached from what you're covering. And I've never been that person. I'm the first person to actually tear up when I hear something that's devastating. I remember there was, what do you call those? It was a gang shooting, but it was not the person that they wanted to kill, like misidentity. What do you call that? There's a term for it.
No, I don't know.
Yeah. So there was a father, a coach who was shot dead in Cloverdale, father of 2 young kids by mistaken identity.
Yeah.
That's it. So he was shot dead, and I had to be in their driveway to cover that story. And I couldn't get myself. All I could think of was the kids. All I could think of was, I couldn't think logically. It bugged me for nights and nights and nights. And then there was also a story about the earthquake in Afghanistan once. It was too much.
Yeah.
It was really too much. And I hats off to people who do this day in, day out. But I think I started getting PTSD pretty fast.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't do this. This is not, it affects me. Entertainment was a very different world. I was doing happy, positive things. And that's what I took pride in.
Right.
And here I'm covering like really sad, morbid stuff.
Yeah. There's a misalignment, right? That's not who you are as a person. Yeah. So So then I want to jump to where you and I actually really got to know each other. You and I were working together in a workplace, and we do not say the name.
We don't say the name.
We don't say the name.
No.
It's too traumatic.
We don't need to say the name.
We're not going to say the name. I'm not going to bring it into my space.
Of course.
But you and I worked in a place, and that's where I first met you. I was your producer for a talk show. And I think like that was so important for me. That time in my life was so important to me because it was the first time in my life that I was able to really understand like what it means to be a woman, like treated in the world. Truly. I had been quite... you see it in your home. But like in the workplace and outside of the work environment, outside of the home environment, it was my first window into what it means to be a woman in a workplace. The way that I was treated, the way that you were treated. I was young, I was new, you know, I can reconcile that. But the way that I saw you being treated in that workplace will never leave me. And I will probably never forgive those people. I don't think I could ever find any forgiveness in my heart for those people and the way that they diminished you, the way that they competed with you, the way that they just like, you know, Punjabi kende like thale like la ke set dana, right? I couldn't stand it. I could not stand it.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting when you're going through it. It's like an abusive marriage, right? You don't even see it.
Yeah.
That it's happening to you. But in hindsight, when you actually talk about it and you sort of rewind those thoughts, you realize how traumatic it must have been for you as a person. I have I don't know, my brain is really cool that way. I don't remember traumatic stuff. I filter it out.
Yeah.
So anything that's negative in my life that has happened, I forget most of it.
Yeah.
Really easily. I'm able to like eliminate it.
It's a part of
and
like
move on. I think it's sort of coping mechanism that I have.
It's a survival pattern mechanism. Yeah.
And it really works in my favor. It's the biggest blessing to be treated that way. Because I think it was the universe's way of saying, here's the sucker punch.
Yeah. Here's the last straw in your face. Straw, right? Yeah, in your face this time.
And if you don't get up back on your feet and take your power back then shame on you, literally. Like,
Yeah.
Hannah, like, what are you doing with your life? Seriously. So I think that was needed. That was needed. Made the retirement plan, see, like I was like, this is it. This is what I work towards. And this is any person who walked in, I would say, I'm in, like, this is like meditation. This is what I worked. I think my entire career, 18 years, was just a rehearsal.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm meant to do. Yeah. And another blessing that happened, Harpo, I don't think I would have ever realized the power of my voice.
Yeah.
I've always been on camera. Always on camera. So I don't think I realized the power of my voice and how it connects with people. And that was the biggest blessing as well. So it taught me a lot about myself. Actually, it taught me more about myself than other people. Yeah. You talked about patriarchy and all the misogyny in workplaces. I had never seen it at home.
Yeah, this is true for you.
So for me, this was actually my first experience to be in that environment.
Like even in your career?
Even in my career.
Yeah.
I think it's a blessing when you're working with Gore.
Yeah. Yeah, straight up amen to that, bro. I mean, there's different kinds of isms there,
but I'm telling you,
you're a worker there. You're not a Benji.
Exactly. Nobody's a Paji.
Yeah.
I worked with the entire, Omni News team for a very long time.
Yeah.
I worked with Channel M folks for a very long time. There's not a single Paji. There's not a single Benji.
Yeah.
You're known for your work, and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And it's a very cutthroat industry, and everybody wants to do their best and present themselves in an excellent manner. Not that it wasn't competitive, but there was no disrespect.
Yeah.
So for me to actually, it was such an eye-opening experience. It's almost like you take somebody who's never experienced anything like this.
Yeah.
And because I've always looked at the world with rose-colored glasses. That's just how I am, because everybody's nice. And it was almost universe's way of saying, hey, no, wait a minute. There's these spaces as well where if you don't draw boundaries, if you don't command respect, this is how you'll be treated.
You're going to be an open vessel for letting all of that in, right? Yeah. And, years later, I would find a lot of compassion for you in that space because I didn't know that this was your first experience with it.
It was my first experience.
I came from like a very sociology, social justice, activism background in schooling. Yeah. That's what I had done. I had just finished my master's. Actually, this is like such a funny side note, but you took me to a film screening for someone in our community. I'm not going to say who it was at all. And we went and you and I sat in the same row as the artist. And I was sitting there and sandwiched between two people who I think are like ridiculous. And I was like, yeah, I have a master's degree. What am I doing here? You know?
Yeah.
And that's because I just felt like that environment was so disrespectful, just like you were just treated like an absolute, just like nobody cared, right? Like how they treated you or anything. And so I came into that space with all these like understandings, and then I watched you experience that misogyny, that patriarchy, all those kinds of different levels of disrespect. And I feel like I was always like, why isn't she like doing more? Like, why isn't she standing up for herself? Why isn't she standing up for like me and as women? And it would be years later that I would realize that you didn't know what was happening. You had no lens to understand what was happening.
It was actually, again, I come back to that analogy. It's like being in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
First you're numb.
Yeah.
Because it's disbelief, right? You just can't believe it that something like this could happen. And then you have to also choose your battles as well. I think my work has always been everything to me. Yeah. And I have blinders on. And I'm ready to fight for my work and for my performance. And when you are doing a broadcasting job, it's a creative job and it's a performance-based job. You could be having a crappy day, but when the mic turns on, you got to be on, right? And that I had learned over the years. There were deaths in the family, and I had to just, camera turns on the next day and I'm on. I got to put all that aside. So the person who's listening to me doesn't know that I'm having a bad day, that I'm working with people who don't appreciate who I am. So I think that was so important to me, to be excellent at what I was doing, that all the other stuff, I was okay to just say, you know what, blinders on.
Yeah.
Block out the noise.
Yeah. And when you also believe in something, like, when you really want to see something happen and you want to see yourself achieve something, there's a level of like, okay, this is discipline now. Like, I'm just going to be disciplined. I'm just going to keep following and it'll happen, right?
I also, sorry, I'm interrupting you, but
No.
I always have considered my craft. I always say, if you don't love it enough to make it your ibadat, then it's not worth it. So for me, my work has been my ibadat.
Ibadat ka matlab batayenge?
Ibadat, dedication, and like it's a prayer to you. Like it's so sacred to you that you will give it all. It's like, I have given it all.
Yeah.
I have given it all. So for me, I think that's the most important thing. But again, it takes a sucker punch to realize that no matter where you are, your gift is yours. So nobody can take that away from you either.
Yeah.
So I think that realization is important. So I'm grateful for that.
So Sucker Punch Day, I'm in Kelowna. I am so like turned. I'm wasted. I'm like, I've been at a winery all day, right? I'm drunk. Right?
Yeah.
And I got a phone call.
We're not going to talk about the details as to
No, I'm not going to talk about the details, but I got a phone call, and you're like, I'm not working there anymore.
Yeah.
And I was just so mad. I was like drunk and mad. I was like, but I don't know if it was that phone call, but we came up with a plan, right?
Yeah,
we came
did.
up with a plan. We're like,
did.
fuck all these people.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, this was the sucker punch, right?
Yeah.
There was no more you could do after that.
Yeah.
And I think you took time to really heal.
Yeah.
After that, that was like a very healing time for you afterwards. And then like chai with tea was dusted off. It was picked up.
Yeah.
And it was like, now, okay, it's the time.
Picked up and then put aside again. Parked the idea for a while too, because I thought I was ready.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with trauma.
Uninvited guest to the party always just shows up.
And
knock, knock.
like, right? And it's one traumatic experience can actually make you revisit all the other traumas that you've been through.
Yes, it's triggering, right?
And it's triggering in ways that is so unexpected. So that entire experience of stepping back and introspecting with the help of Anna, who's phenomenal.
Our therapist, shout out. We have the same therapist. We love her. I'm seeing her tomorrow morning.
I need to see her.
Can't wait.
I miss her. Anna was a savior because Anna helped me heal my inner child.
Yeah.
And that was the most liberating experience. I didn't even know that I hadn't healed. And she helped me. She walked me through it. And it was the most beautiful experience. And there were so many layers of childhood trauma. There were so many layers of things that I hadn't taken care of that just came to the surface level. And one by one started causing a whole bunch of emotions that I had never witnessed. So I didn't recognize myself. A lot of grief. I haven't dealt with my dad's passing. I still haven't. I don't think I ever will.
No, I don't think I ever do.
And the sexual abuse as a child, all the stuff. And I hadn't taken care of it.
Yeah.
And this last experience made all of that come to the surface.
It was like a sucker punch in so many ways because it was a catalyst for like an opening up of all of it. And you couldn't put any of it away anymore, right?
Yeah. It was an awakening in many ways. Very dark place to be in. I didn't think I could get back up. It's interesting because when somebody says, that you took a step back, and when I explained to them what I was going through, I think the only analogy I can use is that in my life, it's happened twice that I have been beaten up the way I felt beaten up by life. First was Dad's passing. That happened a week after my son was born. And he was only 56, so it was very untimely death. And the second was this entire experience.
Yeah.
So when you don't see any hope, when you don't see any light, when it's just you and your insecurities, and you start seeing yourself from other people's lens, and you start believing that you're worthless, you start believing that you're not good enough, that had started to happen.
Yeah.
And that needed work. And I knew I needed work. I needed to deal with it. I remember it was December during the holidays. We had come back from shopping, and I had the most dark thoughts ever. And I messaged Anna. I I told her I need to talk to her.
Mm.
And she was on holidays.
Yeah.
And she made herself available.
Yeah.
And we spoke on the phone, and I think that was the last time where I actually broke down on the way I did. Yeah, I needed to take care of a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
I think we're all afraid as humans, right, to take those layers off.
Yeah.
But until we don't take those layers off, we can't heal.
No.
There's no easy way out, unfortunately. There really isn't. The moment somebody makes you feel worthless, you go back to, I just kept going back to that image of a child who felt helpless and who didn't really have anybody around her to rescue her.
Yeah.
Who felt like it was her fault, who didn't know what was going on, who didn't know how to reach for help. And I couldn't help it. And now I just hold that child in my arms every time I'm out for a walk. I tell her I'm here and I'll take care of her. And yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good place to be. It really is.
is.
I feel very, I'm still healing, but I feel very zen.
Yeah.
I know I always say that to you. You're like, how are you feeling? And I'm like, I'm just zen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cal, can we get a box of tissues, please? Yeah. Thank you for disclosing all of that. I think like there's so much power in who you are now. You know, it was always there. It just wasn't allowed. You didn't give it permission to be there, right? I think it's so important for you to say these things as a woman out loud. Is so important for your own inner coming, for your own unification with yourself. Because when we can say our truth out loud, we have integrated fully into it for ourselves. Right?
I have never been able to say that out loud. No. I think it's very recent, actually. Yeah.
A lot of it, I was so moved by you. I was so proud of you. I must have told like so many people after, but the same event that we were honored at, in a room full of 300 women, some known, some strangers, the things that you said, the things that you disclosed about sexual abuse, about, you know, like having self-doubt, having all of that. I think it was so monumental for your own healing. Like, I was so proud of you. I don't know how you must have felt.
Zia was with me that day, right?
Yeah.
My
Zia
daughter.
yeah.
And she's 16 now. She was my +1 that night. And I think this was the first time she heard me speak about it. And the hug that I got from her that day said a lot. And it felt safe to share.
Yeah.
I felt light afterwards. I really did. There are things that you don't even admit to yourself.
Yeah.
You're afraid to even say that out loud to yourself, looking in the mirror. And you're absolutely right. We, as women especially, we keep so much inside. So much. There's so much chaos. Also, I think one of the biggest realizations that I had was that I was always afraid to shine bright. I am one of those people who doesn't like spotlight. I don't enjoy attention. I don't enjoy spotlight. I've enjoyed conversations, and that's been the case since I was a kid. I was not a popular kid, but I love building connections. I wanted to go to my neighbors' houses and talk to everybody. But I wasn't the brightest kid in school. So I was pretty invisible in high school, actually. I don't think anybody remembers me in high school because I was very happy just being invisible. I didn't want the spotlight. And I didn't do anything to get the spotlight. Yet I had dreams of storytelling. So I have never really enjoyed that attention. It's a byproduct of what I do and what my career brought. But it wasn't something that I was striving for, ever. So when that starts to happen, when you start seeing yourself from people's eyes, you have this certain expectation of yourself. for the first, I think, 15 years of my career, when I was out at these events, Riz had to go to the bar and get me a drink.
Yeah.
Right? I was afraid to even go and drink in public or have a glass of wine in public, because I was always watching over my shoulder that somebody's going to see this and somebody's going to say something about me. And it was always about
perception, identity.
Yeah. It's a burden that you carry.
Yeah.
It really is. And always afraid to, again, I think that comes from that people-pleasing trait, that you sort of dim your light to make the other person feel so comfortable. And I think, without even realizing, it really worked in my favor when it came to interviews, because it was all about, I think that was probably one of the reasons that I was able to get what I was able to get out of the person sitting across from me, is that I was okay to step back and let them shine, because it was about them. It wasn't about me ever, right? Yeah. But I started doing that in real life. I started sort of bringing myself down to the other person's level to make myself look smaller, so that they don't find me intimidating, and they're not like threatened by me. I started doing that, and I didn't even realize I was doing that in real life.
Like shrinking yourself, right, to accommodate the needs.
Absolutely.
Right. It's a part of the survival response. It's called fawning, right? It's like people pleasing is basically just abdicating your own needs, being like, I have none, I will become invisible, I will become silent to just hold yours in high regard, right? I think like so many of us as brown women can relate to this. So many people in general can relate to this, but especially brown women, we can relate to this a lot, right? As you were talking, I was thinking about how someone that we both love a lot is Asad Khan.
Oh, I love him.
2 years ago, he said to me, he doesn't even remember this, but he was like to me, he's like, how comfortable are you being famous? And I was like, very comfortable. He's like, I'm going to ask you again, how comfortable are you being famous? And I said, very comfortable. I didn't even hesitate. And I understand what you're saying, because as we know, everything has a light and a dark. Everything has a shadow and light side, right? For those of us who were not seen as children, who were not really, like maybe not like out of like John Kay, they didn't do a John Kay, but like maybe there were other circumstances going on at home where the adults needed more attention. If the children, if the child goes without attention, what they want is attention. But because it's not what they're used to, when they get it, it's deeply uncomfortable. So I've always had that too, where I was constantly bounced from like caregiver to caregiver, left alone a lot as a child, not really had didn't really have my emotions and like my feelings attuned to, didn't really get attention. So I'm constantly looking for it. That's why I've built the career that I have, right? I'm okay, air quotes, being hyper visible. But then when I get it, I'm deeply uncomfortable. I'm like, oh, please don't see me. You'll if you see me, then you might notice that I'm not perfect.
Right.
You might see me and notice like, oh, I actually have flaws, and you might not like me then.
It's crazy. We've talked about it so many times, how similar we are in so many ways. And everything you've said. It literally sounds like me. Every single thing.
I think you and I were meant to come together in this lifetime for that reason.
I think so too.
Right? That alto thing was just like a fun little trick by God.
Yes, it was.
It really was.
Yeah.
So now you are doing something that you are the face of, but this time you own it. You're in your power. Let's talk about it. How does that feel?
Oh my goodness. I feel so empowered.
Yay.
So empowered. The first episode published, and if it wasn't for you, teaching me the tricks of the trade, I wouldn't have learned. And I remember publishing, because the first episode was just audio, and I published it on my birthday. And in 2023, on May 5th, and hitting that button of publishing it, Harpo, felt like the most, it was gratifying, it was empowering, it was liberating, it was a rebirth in so many ways. So many ways.
I love that.
And it's interesting because there's a lot of unlearning as well. So yes, it's mine, so to say. I get to make the decisions. Yet I find myself asking Dan, who helps me
Shout out Dan.
Hi, Dan. Who helps me shoot the podcast. I find myself trying to get his approval. And there's so many times where he's like, T, this is your podcast. It's really interesting. And I catch myself.
Yeah.
Dan, was that okay? And he's like, you do what you want to do.
Yeah.
This is your podcast.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of unlearning and that's been happening. It's been a lot of growth. I think there's a reason why 5 years ago Chai with Tea didn't work out or pan out, because I wasn't the individual that I am today. I don't think I could have the conversations that I'm having today 5 years ago.
No, because we can only meet people with the depth that we've met ourselves. And so, you know, the conversations that you're having, you can have these celebrities anywhere. I can YouTube Karan Aujla and, you know, so-and-so and go find an interview anywhere, right? But it's the style of the interviewer. It's their curiosities. It's the depth of which they would like to go to. And if you haven't, you know, gone into that on your own, it's hard to get that out of somebody else. And it's, I think, actually quite wrong to expect that level of vulnerability from somebody else if you haven't experienced that vulnerability with yourself. So I think you're so right in saying that it had to happen now and not then, you know? Why are you smirking like that? What's going on?
You know, because it somebody we know from the past gave me an advice and told me that your emotions and your story is not important.
Ugh, get out of here.
So don't ever think that it's about you. So don't worry about
It's
sharing
always
your
about
stories.
you.
And I'm so glad, Harpo, I didn't take that advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so glad, because I don't think anyone, it could be anyone, I don't care how vulnerable they are, would be ready to open up until you opened your heart to them.
Totally.
Why would they? To create a safe space, I feel like something that binds us all together is our emotions, our vulnerabilities, our experiences. And they're not, you realize that, yes, they're famous, but you also realize that they're human. So the reason, I think they were really afraid to show the human side of them, especially in Punjabi entertainment scene. That's something that I've observed. That's probably the case everywhere, because entertainment makes you have two personas. There is one persona that is only for the people, and there's one persona that's yours. And most of these people haven't really known how to share their actual selves out in the public. Or maybe they were afraid of judgments. I don't know. But I feel like just having even Karan open up the way he did made people realize that it actually works in your favor when you open your heart, when you share your story, when you share your struggles, when you talk about the darkness. It's okay to do that. You actually connect with people more. Yeah, on a deeper level.
That's what you're doing today, actually. You're doing that as well, right?
If you didn't create the space for me, I wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
Right? So you opened your heart.
Yeah.
You created the space for me to open up. And you know that I have been that person who has held back for a very long time. And I have a very, very small circle of people that know me really well. I don't give access to everybody. And I like it that way. That's a choice I've made.
Yeah.
And I'm really enjoying it. And you're one of those people who has.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that.
I do regret sharing my vulnerabilities with a lot of people that didn't deserve to see that side of me. If somebody asked me, what are your regrets? I would always say that I wish I didn't, because I've always been an open book. And I wish I wasn't an open book with certain people.
Yeah. I mean, because we say we're the same person, maybe this is true for you as well. I know that anytime that I've done that, it's because I wanted them to like me. I just wanted closeness. I just wanted to be loved. That's why I did it. I was just like, I was in that moment and I was like, I probably shouldn't say this. I should probably keep this to myself. But that, like, when I say it and you see me, and because I'm someone who hasn't been seen before, you'll see me in this moment. I'll get a tiny dose of validation.
So true.
Right? I'm used to breadcrumbing. This is one breadcrumb that I will hold for the rest of however long.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons we keep getting hurt, and I think I was just tired of getting hurt, is because we see people from our own lens. We expect that the person is going to give us the same empathy and compassion that we give in return. And that's not the case. So that had to come with a lot of pain. That had to come with a lot of hurt. And one of the reasons I pulled back is because I was exhausted of getting hurt.
Yeah.
And I think the last experience left me so broken that another heartbreak is something that my heart wouldn't be able to handle. So then I realized, okay, I can't change the world. I can't change all these people the way they are. So what can I do? I can just be selective who I let in.
Yeah.
So that was a very conscious decision.
Yeah.
So now very few people
Yes.
have access. Yeah.
I think what's really important as human beings is that we create a sense of safety within ourselves to be able to tell ourselves the truth about ourselves. And then we create safety around ourselves to be able to live in that truth again and again as authentically as possible. If there is no safety, you cannot be yourself. If you are not being safe, that means there's no safety. You know?
agree.
Safety is so important. In almost everything that you've told me now about, this last part of your chapter here is that you started to create safety inside yourself. And then you started to create safety around you. And that has allowed for more safety in the work that you do for people to come and feel safe enough to share what they share, right? It's like that energy is rooted in safety. That's why people feel really safe when they come to you and they can talk to you about all those things, which they would probably say no to anybody else.
It's shocked me at times. It really has, because I always say the podcast has actually healed me in so many ways.
Yeah.
I haven't needed therapy ever since I started the podcast.
Yeah.
It's been so healing. These conversations have, and the person sitting across from me doesn't even realize how they're healing me. They've taught me so much. Each conversation has left me feeling, oh my gosh, wow. Each conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm so intentional about who I'm having these conversations with as well. And anytime I'm not intentional, it's shown in my work.
Yeah.
It's shown in my work. There's been people that I can just sense the moment they walk in that this is not going to work. I just know it because there is a shield that they have on that I know that I won't be able to. If you're going to create, it has to be both ways, right? It's give and take when it comes to conversations.
Yeah.
So if you're not getting anything from me, you're going to try once, you're going to try twice, you're going to try 3 times. And after that, it's just going to be like, I don't think this is going to work out.
Yeah. Well, I was like a tad nervous to have you on because I was like, I have to actually be good.
You're excellent at what you do. You know that already.
You. I feel the same way about the podcast. I feel like when I'm here, this hour that we record, I'm completely transported. I'm so present. For me, presence is the benchmark of like everything in life. Yes. If I was present, it was worth it. It was good. It was best of Vasul. And if I was not present, then it was misaligned or there was something that I need to go back and like go over.
Yeah.
But every time I'm here in this conversation with anybody, I'm so present. And it is healing. I also haven't really been going to therapy ever since I started recording in the studio here.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
Also, I feel like sometimes you could be present, but you don't align with the energy of the other person.
Yeah.
And that's happened to me as well. So I'm working on that because I was very critical of myself when I wasn't able to bring the best out of the other person initially. There's been a couple of episodes, not too many, where I have felt that why wasn't I able to bring the best out of this person? What was I lacking? What was it that I was feeling at that moment? Why was I not present? And it had nothing to do with the other person. It was me. Because I think, especially in the beginning when I first started, I was so focused on quantity over quality because I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do this, and the podcast has to be like on air, and I have to have this much content and all of that stuff. And the moment I paused and said, this is not working. If you're coming from a place of fear, this is not going to work. So the moment I paused, the moment I parked the idea, the moment I said, okay, you know what? I'm not ready yet. So I remember shooting a few episodes at a studio that I was looking for multiple studio spaces and things were just not working out. I would shoot but not feel great. And then we were kicked out of that studio. And then we went to another studio, recorded a few episodes, and that didn't work out. So then I looked up and I said, okay, I understand. I'm forcing things.
Yeah.
And a creative process is never meant to be forced. So if it's not flowing then it's not meant to be.
Yeah.
So pretty much all of 2022, I decided to not do anything. And then something happened in 2023. New Year, I think it was New Year's. And I just looked up and I said, I'm ready. And things just started happening magically. I just, all of a sudden, these miracles were happening around me. People were walking in my life who were just guiding me and saying, this is what you're meant to do and this is what you're supposed to do. Take your power back. I remember meeting a woman who I haven't known personally. And she literally looked at me and said, you're a fucking legend. What are you worried about?
Yeah.
What do you need? How can I support you?
Yeah.
And all these energies all of a sudden walked into my life and showed me the way. Yeah.
Because you were ready for it. You called it in and you were willing to accept and embrace it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I just had a moment where I was looking at your face and I'm like, even our faces kind of look the same. We actually both have like a thing on the same side of our nose too. Oh my God, our cheeks are the same. Oh my God. I never even realized. My eyes don't close when I smile though.
No, your eyes are gorgeous.
Thank you so much. Anyway, thank you so much for being this vulnerable on the podcast, for being willing and open to being on the other side of the microphone, for allowing me to be curious and ask questions and really show the people who are listening who you are and who you are as the woman that you are, because we have all these ideas of what the women in our lives should be like, or the women that we watch. And it's because we see glimpses of ourselves in them. And right. And like, if they're not who we think they are, then who are we, right? Then who am I? How do I make sense of myself? And so I just want to say thank you. And I feel so grateful for all the lessons that I've learned as a young woman navigating an industry that is so difficult sometimes. I have called you so many times to be like, what should I do? Like, did I do this right? Or, like this doesn't feel aligned. And you've always been like, you got this, kiddo. You know what you're doing. Just like, don't do this, don't do that. And I just want to say thank you for that, because it's so important to lean into our own experiences and offer them as tokens to other people. So
I think it also comes from a place of, what you didn't have.
Yeah.
I didn't have anyone to pick up the phone and call.
Yeah.
And ethnic media at that time was very male dominant. So it was so it was all men all around. And mainstream was doing great when it came to South Asian faces, but those were not the people who could relate to my experiences that I was having. So I really didn't have anybody that I could pick up the phone and call and say, what should I do?
Yeah.
And I'm just so proud of you.
I'm
so proud of you. And I've learned a lot from you as well. A lot from you. And sometimes, you're the one who's shown me the mirror and said, this is who you are. Just don't forget it. So we're there for each other.
I think I was positioned in your life at a very specific time.
Yes, you were. Yeah.
I am like, it's interesting. Like I started in this world, in this industry at the same age that you did. We were both 23 when we started. And I think like I was meant to come in as that version of you. I was meant to come in as 23-year-old Tarannum.
Wow. I have goosebumps.
It's true though. Like I was meant to be that girl in your life to mirror back to you in that exact way. I
saw so much of me in you. I can't even, I saw so much of me. Yeah. A wiser version. I always say that.
True.
My kids still think I'm gullible. So I've always been that naive, gullible. And it's so weird because people see you and they think that you have your shit together.
Yeah, and you're like, psych. I don't.
I really don't.
Yeah. But you're a woman who is learning and trying.
Exactly.
And growing and expanding.
We all are.
Yeah.
Right?
But you got to have the willingness.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Life will always throw you sucker punches. You just have to have the willingness to look up.
Yeah. And also never give up, right?
Yeah.
It's I had such beautiful messages when I was launching the podcast. A woman who left a really high profile job and she said, I don't have anything lined up. I've got grown kids. You and I both know her, but I'll tell you the name after. But and she left me the most poignant message and I was so touched. And she said, because of you, I have the courage to do this.
Wow.
And that's what I mean. You don't even realize who you're healing and who you're helping on the way, right? So we all have it in us. We just got to find ourselves.
Just got to find her and pull her up, right? And hug her on walks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And if you haven't already, you got to go and listen to Chai with Tea. You got to follow Tarannum Thind on Instagram. Just keep up and support another brown woman who is really growing and learning and expanding into herself.
Thank you for having me.
That's a wrap.